Hello friends, welcome to this Laravel training session. In this training session, in this first session, we will understand what is Laravel, why Laravel is used or why is it popular, and then we will understand how to install Laravel and how to get started with the project creation. So let's get started. So Laravel is server-side PHP framework, and its main positive points are the model view controller architecture, that is MVC. Another point which is very important, that is the authentication, and it is really one enterprise grade framework. That means you can create complex web applications and web portals. Now, what exactly is Laravel? Here, I assume that you have done some sort of HTML and CSS programming, some sort of JavaScript or jQuery you have used earlier prior to attending this. I also assume that you are aware about the PHP programming and PHP programming syntax. You know how to write PHP files. So PHP is prerequisite as well as HTML and CSS is prerequisite for this Laravel training. Now, before going further deep into this Laravel, let us understand or let us clarify one simple basic fundamental point which many a time student miss out and they get confused, and I really feel you should not be in that case. Now the problem many of the students, many of the freshers, many of the beginners do face is when they start learning they don't understand where exactly this executes. As we know that web applications, there are two clear categories, that one is the server side and another is the client side. That means the program which runs on the server side is called as a server side program, and that which runs inside the browser, inside the Google Chrome or any other browser whichever you are using to request the website, so that is called as the client side scripting or the client side program. So as I said, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, even this React JS, Vue Js, Angular, these all are the client side terminologies, client side technologies, client side languages, whatever you call them. Okay, so in short, they run in client's browser. The person who is requesting that website, the person who is trying to access that web application from the browser, in that browser these things will run. But then where does this Laravel execute? It executes on the server side. So typically on a web server, you can see in this picture that here you have Apache web server running, there's a database server, and there are some bunch of PHP files. So this makes your web server a simple basic web server, right? So your Laravel framework will be running in on this web server, right? So what we are going to learn basically is a server side framework, and it is based on the PHP. Now it you in this couple of minutes of explanation, at least I think you are clear that you're going to learn something related to PHP, which is a framework and that executes on the server side. Even if this much, if it is clear to you, I'm happy for you, right? So let's go ahead, let's start further point. And over here I just use word framework over here again and again in the previous slide. In this slide I have used framework, the word framework. Let us understand what exactly the framework is. Framework is nothing but something ready-made stuff provided to you, like just like this pack of biryani ready mix, where you just have to open this pack, pour the content into a bowl and keep it into microwave, and your biryani gets ready in a minute. So you don't have to cook cook the meat and boil the rice. Nothing has to be done, everything is given to you. You just have to do some basic stuff at the end. Now similarly in our programming we get framework. Now this framework is provided to you, which will take care of most of the complex part, most of the commonly required stuff, and you just have to focus your work, your programming on writing the business logic, on writing the UI, and so on. So you don't have to do same thing, same common stuff again and again in every project, because you're getting some ready framework. It takes care of the security, it takes care of the string sanitization, and so on and so forth. So what is a framework? It is basically a ready library for you on which you are going to build your application, right? Let's get started further. Now in a typical php file, what you get is, or the way you write your php file is mix of html, mix of php, again mix of html, mix of php. So here you may write some header and meta tags, and then you may just open some database in php, then fetch that record, again create some html and write that into this portion over here, again write some business logic in php to render it correctly, and so on. And this is how your php normal file looks like. It is really a mix of many things, and it becomes really difficult to manage and difficult to maintain if the project expands, project goes into the complex mode, right? So let's say here you have shopx.com, so here it is index.php, then shopx.com/products, so here it is products.php, and so on. So you're going to write this php files, and in this structure where it is mix of html as well as php. So here you don't get that flexibility, or it is not easy to maintain such php projects when it goes into the large scale. So there comes the Laravel, which offers you the MVC, that is model view controller architecture. So imagine that in this php file you have database connections, you have some business logic, and you have some html tag. What if you separate them and create three different files? Exactly, that is what is being done in this MVC architecture. So it is model PHP talks to the database. Then you have view PHP, which it is used to render the HTML, and the controller PHP takes care of the business logic, reading the data from model, passing it to the view, and so on. So one particular task can is actually divided into three files, and this becomes very easy for large scale application where there are thousands of lines of codes per block, if you want to understand. So that becomes really easy when you write your code in this fashion, which is MVC, model view architecture. At this point of time, I don't expect you to understand and understand this fully what is MVC, but soon we will be starting installation and then start writing our own project code. So at that time you will have clear idea about how this MVC functions, and why and how the MVC is used in Laravel. So at this point of time, just imagine that your own PHP file is split into three sections. The first PHP file talks to a database, second PHP file has some business logic, and third PHP file has some HTML code, which is getting the data from controller, which ultimately it has got from the model. So this makes one unit, and so on. There will be hundreds of units in your project depending on the project size and the requirement, right? So in typical Laravel application, how it happens, see, this is the client which is requesting a website, let's say your domain shopx.com, right? So the request goes to index.php, then index.php hands over that request to the Laravel framework over here. We will see this in detail in upcoming sessions. So here this framework takes care of the guard. It has the root, it has service provider, and so many other things. What is guard? Guard is basically the facility. Here we popularly use Sanctum is used, and there are many other options available. So this checks the authenticity, if the user is logged in or not, if the user is of type admin, if user what kind of role it is having, and so on. So this guard takes care of that. Then it routes that user to particular screen as per their roles, as per their custom, as per their user type, and so on. So this routing takes care of that. And there are some service providers also, something like authentication and so on, which you can use ready made. So basically this framework, as in earlier slide I mentioned, that framework is nothing but the ready made ready-made platform for you. So this takes care of all these things, so you don't have to write anything into this. You just have to do some configurations, etc. Most of the things are already pre-configured for your project automatically. So when a request comes in, this guard checks if you enable that, and if you don't enable that guard, it won't check at all. Then it will route that request to particular MVC module, and then it will process the data and will send the response back to the client. So this is how in simple terms, in basic terms, Laravel functions, and your responsibility as a programmer will be to write this MVC files correctly, right? There will be some configuration certainly over here, but they are not to be done every day. Like when you start a project, you may do some configurations once and it will be useful forever, right? So your main focus will be to write this MVC files, right? So this is how the Laravel framework will be, and your role into writing the files related to the MVC architecture. Well, now how to install Laravel? So to install Laravel, you need some other things, namely you need XAMPP, right? XAMPP, in that you will get Apache Web Server, which also installs the PHP libraries, and you get MariaDB. MariaDB is a flavor of MySQL. So in short, you can say you're getting MySQL and a web server. So you need to have a XAMPP. You need to have Composer, which is the dependency manager for PHP. This is essential. Then you may have this Node.js and npm. It is good to have. You should use this Visual Studio Code. So these are all prerequisites. See, there are various ways to install or get started with Laravel, but this one thing which this way gives you more flexibility, and you understand what's exactly happening behind the scene. So once you install XAMPP, you get a web server and the database. You get Composer, and that is essential for our Laravel installation and further, project creation, etc. Node and npm commands are required. So you're going to install all these things. Links will be provided in the notes file. So don't worry about that. You just follow those links, and the installations are straightforward for you. Right. Now, in these four items, we haven't installed Laravel as yet. So there is no Laravel installation done as yet in any of these four. So where is Laravel coming from? See, Laravel gets installed. Laravel framework gets downloaded to your project when you create your project. When you actually create your project, right? So it won't come in any of this. So there is no Laravel coming from these installations, but Laravel will get installed as part of your project at the time of project creation. So how to create your project? It is pretty straightforward. Open a command prompt, and in that command prompt, navigate to the directory or the folder of your choice where your project files are stored. So here you can use those commands like cd and the folder name and so on. So you can just navigate to that particular folder inside the command prompt, and at that command prompt you just write this command, which is Composer create hyphen project Laravel oblique Laravel, and the name of the project. So that is, here I have given the project name as Shopx. So Composer create hyphen project Laravel slash Laravel is the part of the command, and Shopx is the project name which you are supplying it to the command. Now due to this command, when you run this command in command prompt, right, what happens is your a folder is created inside this folder. The folder name will be Shopx, and all the Laravel framework files and the project files, they are getting downloaded and getting created in your hard drive, right? So this downloads Laravel framework, and the project files are getting created inside the Shopx folder. So if you go to Shopx folder and if you try to browse that, your folder will look like something like this, where you will have folder. These are the standard names: app folder, Bootstrap folder, resources folder, routes folder, and so on. So this is basically nothing but the Laravel framework, and your project is ready now. You can configure that, and you can customize that. You can write your own logic, you can write your own MVC into it. So this particular part is given to you ready from this command like this: composer create project. So project is created, and next you need to start writing your code. You need to start customizing the project. You need to configure its database connections and so on. So basically what we have seen in last 5 to 10 minutes is the Laravel works on the server side, as it is server side PHP framework. It is nothing but a ready-made platform given for you, right? It simplifies the PHP file by due to the MVC architecture. And in this MVC architecture, your model becomes separate, your view becomes separate, and the controller becomes separate. The Laravel provides you guards and routes and other facilities out of the box, so you don't have to write exclusive code or additional code every time you create a project. And for installation purpose, these are the things which are required: as XAMPP, you need Composer, you need Node.js, and the Visual Studio, right? So after that, whenever you want to create a project, just run this command from the folder where your project files you want to have your project folders, etc. So just run this command and your project is ready. Now in the next lecture we will understand each and details of each and every folder, right? And what exactly it is meant for and how they are interconnected. Where is the index.php out of this? Because here right now we can't see the index.php anywhere. It is somewhere in the public folder. And then how this index.php is connected to the MVC architecture. So many things we have to learn. It is such an interesting topic to learn. Laravel is really structured, really interesting to understand. So that we will start from the next session onwards. Till this time, you just install all these things and make sure that your first project, the minimum project, is ready for us to configure and experiment with. So let's finish this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.